Filmic Pro version 7 is finally out, and visually at least, it's a dramatic change from previous versions. The user interface has been almost completely redesigned. The basic layout is pretty much the same, but most things now look or function a bit differently. In this video, I will go through the new UI and show you how to set shutter speed, ISO, focus, and the other main controls. Back in September of 2022, the company behind Filmic Pro, the best-known camera app for smartphones, announced that they were joining forces with an app developer called Bending Spoons from Italy. So in reality, this just meant Bending Spoons bought Filmic Pro and set about switching the app to a subscription model, much to existing users' delight. If you install or update to Filmic Pro version 7, you'll need to choose your subscription before you can proceed. Now there's a weekly or a yearly option. If you're upgrading as an existing Filmic Pro user, you do get a discount here. You can also choose a week's trial. So I found that if I ignored all this stuff and just tapped the X in the top left corner, I was taken to a trial version without having to subscribe. It now says Pro top left, and if you tap that, it tells you that you can use all the features, but that you won't be able to move or share the video files from the dedicated Filmic Pro folder, which is located on your smartphone. Now that the app has become a kind of service that we subscribe to rather than a product that we buy outright, what kind of people are going to use this app? In my opinion, Filmic Pro is still the best video shooting app for iPhone, but it's probably now the most expensive one as well. So I'm not actually against paying a subscription for an app that I use regularly, but in this case Filmic Pro has given me a year free to try it out, so after that we'll see what happens. Personally, I only use Filmic Pro when I'm shooting a short film or a documentary or a music video. So recently I used this app to shoot a short documentary, the making of a smartphone filmmaker and a music video. One option that we could use to save a few dollars is to pay weekly and cancel as soon as we finish filming. And if our shoot is a week or two, then we're only going to have to pay for that time. Now that version 7 is released, the good news is that the old version can still be used without paying a subscription fee. There's a separate app available titled Filmic Legacy, which is version 6 without a subscription and with all in-app purchases unlocked. So here's how to do that without subscribing or going through any other kind of signing up procedure. Update to the new app, and when you get to the page asking you to choose a subscription, tap this X in the top left corner. Now tap the cog, tap Information, and finally tap Download Filmic Legacy. And this takes you to Filmic Legacy in the store. If you bought Filmic Pro before August the 25th, 2022, you can install this app like any other and you will get a separate app. Now you have both version 7 and legacy apps on your device. If you're using an iPhone, you can even export all the clips that you captured using version 7 back into the legacy version. So this makes it easier to follow a strategy where you can subscribe for a limited amount of time, like maybe a week or two, grab a bunch of shots, move them all to Filmic Legacy, and then cancel your subscription, and you can save yourself a few dollars if you just want to use Filmic version 7 intermittently. If you'd like to import the clips stored in Filmic Pro version 7 into Filmic Legacy, previously Filmic Pro version 6, you can follow these steps. So open up the Files app on your iOS device. Select Browse on my iPhone, iPad, and then Filmic Pro. Tap the three dots in the upper right-hand corner and choose Select. Select all the clips you wish to move to the Filmic Legacy library. Tap the folder icon in the bottom row and navigate to On My iPhone, iPad, and now Filmic Legacy. And now just tap Move. In the center of the screen, we have a circle and a square. These are the exposure, circle, and focus, square, reticles. You can drag them around or tap to lock them, and then they turn red. Now this is something new. If you tap this arrow at the top, a bar drops down displaying your most important settings. ISO, shutter speed, white balance in kelvins, and then there's memory space left measured in the minutes of video. Next is codec, and finally your color format, like natural, flat, or log, for example. So you can actually tap these settings to bring up controls that allow you to change them. One major change to the UI of Filmic Pro is the introduction of this box that pops up from the bottom. Here you get various choices depending on which button you press. lens picker, mode picker, analytics, white balance, and things like that. Tap the center of the screen to send this box away again, or just tap the button you used to open it. The cog button, top left, opens up settings, laid out pretty much as they were in the previous versions. A new feature is the assignable function button, top right. This allows you to create a quick access button to one setting or feature which you can choose from a long list. For example, you can set it to play back your last recorded video. So this is really great for checking your last take. Above the audio level meter, we have a button which gives us access to audio controls. In the center, at the bottom, we have the time counter as before, frame rate and resolution displayed, as well as battery level and remaining memory. Tap this to cycle through a couple of histograms as well. So other buttons are familiar from the previous version. Bottom right is the record button. Next to that is the gallery button. Next to that is the analytics button. In the bottom left is a button which opens color controls. There's various ways to set exposure and focus using Filmic Pro. If we open the mode selector, we get three choices. Firstly, we can use the reticles, which is the circle and the square. Second choice is to use a center weighted method. The last choice is to set shutter speed, ISO, and focus manually, as you do in a regular camera. If we open the top information bar, we can see shutter and ISO settings. In reticle mode, we can swipe the screen to move these reticles. As I said before, the reticle that deals with exposure is the circle. Move the circle to where you want the camera to take the exposure reading. As I move it, you can actually see the ISO and shutter speed changing in the top bar. If you now move the camera, it's going to adjust exposure depending on what's in that circle. However, if we tap the circle, it goes red and the exposure is locked. You can see the ISO and shutter speed in the top bar are now also red, and they have a padlock beside them. With exposure locked, when we move the camera now, the exposure does not adjust. You can see that the ISO and shutter speed settings at the top don't change. Move the focus reticle to set focus to whatever object you place it over. Again, just tap it to lock. If we switch to center balance mode, the reticles change and move to the center. Exposure and focus are now set using the middle of the screen. The exposure reticle is the larger reticle, and the square focus reticle is now located inside it. You can tap these reticles to lock them, just like the movable ones. And this mode is useful if you're filming yourself or a subject in the middle of the frame. In manual mode, the reticles disappear and we get a control slider on each side of the screen. Left is the exposure or zoom slider. Right is the focus slider. The left slider has 4 different modes which you can select by tapping the mode or swiping the modes until the one you want is highlighted. Did you know that photo cameras that shoot film and movie cameras that shoot film have different types of mechanical shutter? While photo cameras have shutters that open and close, for example a leaf shutter, movie cameras have rotating shutters. A rotating shutter is a disc which spins as the film is fed through the camera mechanism. And the way it works is that the disc is set differently to increase or decrease the shutter speed. And that's where the idea of a shutter angle comes in. So the main reason to adjust the shutter angle is to control the amount of motion blur recorded. A 180-degree shutter angle is considered normal, which means the shutter is open half the time and closed half the time. And as nearly all films are shot at 24 frames per second, that means the shutter is open for 1/48th of a second. And that's how we get this combination of a 24 frames per second frame rate and a 1/48th shutter speed when emulating the look of film with digital video cameras. In manual mode, there's now 3 ways that we can adjust exposure. First, we have LV. When we move the slider in this mode, Filmic Pro adjusts shutter speed and ISO together. Wherever you set this, exposure will be locked when you stop moving the slider. Next is ISO. Swipe the slider to set a specific ISO number. Then we have shutter speed. Again, just swipe up and down to set a specific shutter speed. And if you find this too small and kind of fiddly for your fingers, you can open a dedicated ISO or shutter speed slider. Tap ISO or shutter speed in the top bar. A box opens at the bottom and you can now use this slider. There's also preset ISO and shutter speed numbers, so you can just tap those, and if you tap the number in the circle, you can input an exact number using a keyboard. And note that you'll now find that your exposure reticle has reappeared, locked and red. If you tap to unlock it, the box is going to slide away and you will return to auto exposure. However, you still have your manual focus slider on the right. And this means that you can set focus manually while exposure is set automatically. If you just want to use a single reticle, you can open or close one of the sliders by swiping from the left or right. This means that you can set exposure manually at the same time as using autofocus. And you can set focus manually with the exposure in auto. We usually try to keep ISO as low as possible. The reason for this is that high ISO is more likely to create digital noise. On the other hand, a fast shutter speed reduces motion blur and makes video look a little bit harsh. Usually we want smoother looking video, and that is created by slower shutter speeds. To change resolution and frame rate, tap the cog button and then choose video. Resolution is under the encoding tab and frame rate is under the frame rate tab. You can also reach this menu by tapping the min or minutes remaining, number or the current codec, and bitrate in the top bar. To change lenses in Filmic Pro, tap this button in the bottom left of the screen, which looks like a triangle with one side curved. The lens picker box slides up from the bottom and now you can choose the available lenses. Either use the slider or tap the lens at the bottom here. And in this device, which is an iPhone 14 Pro, I've got a 0.5 times ultra wide, regular wide, which is the main camera, and a 3 times telephoto. And you'll see the field of view changing on the left as you switch between cameras. To switch between front and rear cameras, tap the yellow button with the circular arrows. Now, the main difference between the different cameras in your phone is between getting a wider but more distant view or a narrower but closer view. And as you can see, when we change the lens, Filmic Pro shows you how the field of view of the lens changes, as well as indicating the equivalent in millimeters. What this means is that when you use a telephoto to get a closer view of a subject, you'll also see less background. On the other hand, if instead of using the telephoto, we just move closer to the subject, so that the subject is now the same size in the frame, we will actually see more of the background. So therefore, choosing to use the tele lens is not just for the convenience, there's also an effect on the look of the image. There's 2 ways to zoom in and out using Filmic Pro. First, you can use the slider on the right, which is a bit of a relic from the old Filmic Pro, or you can use the left side manual control slider. Just select the Z and then swipe the slider. If you use the side slider, you will see the magnification number. So this is going to be useful if you have an exact magnification that you need to remember so that you can come back, you can get the same shot later. The zoom sliders in Filmic Pro will not switch lenses, so the zoom will only apply to the lens that you've selected. And that's whether you're recording or whether you're just switching lenses. Now, to play back clips that you've recorded, tap the gallery button, which is this triangle in the bottom right corner. And then you just tap a clip to open it, and it will automatically start playing. You can pause the clip as well as skip 15 seconds back or forwards by tapping these buttons. Just tap the X button to close the clip and then tap the screen to remove the gallery. You can also set the customizable function button to play the last clip that you recorded, as I mentioned earlier. So let's talk about this new FN button. A new feature that comes with the version 7 overhaul is the button in the top right. And this button can be customized from a list of possible functions. So we just long press on the button and it opens up a menu. You can choose from any of these or tap the plus button in the corner of the menu and that will open another menu of functions. Choose one and now the button will perform that function whenever you tap it. So that's a really useful new feature there. Normally when we want a professional looking video, we lock exposure, focus and white balance. If we leave them on auto, they're going to change during the shot and this can look messy. And this is especially true of white balance. In Filmic Pro, there are 3 modes for white balance: fully auto, fully locked, or lock on record. Tap the color temperature reading, which is the number followed by a K in the top bar. The box pops up from the bottom, now containing white balance controls. On the left of this box is another box, which is just a visual representation of the current white balance setting. The top slider is temperature, the bottom slider is tint. If you slide the temperature slider left and right, you will see the cross in the box move up and down. If you slide the tint slider left and right, you will see the cross move left and right. Bottom right is a white button with the letters AWB, which stands for Auto White Balance. When the letters are blue, it means you are in fully auto mode. Tap and it becomes red, which is fully locked. Tap again and the letters change to yellow, which is now lock on record mode. With lock on record selected, white balance will be set automatically until you start recording, at which point it will lock until you stop recording. And this is a really good compromise between fully auto and fully locked. It will still set white balance automatically for you, but it's not going to change during the shot. The thing is that white balance can be corrected when you're editing, but if it changes during the shot, it can be much harder to correct, or sometimes impossible. So at the bottom of this box are a number of preset white balance settings. The A and B are custom presets. To save a white balance setting, just long press on A or B and then tap save. When you tap these buttons, the saved preset is going to be loaded. This kind of colorful box in the bottom left corner opens up a new set of controls, and which also contains the same white balance controls. But now there's extra options. There's looks, which add color filters to your video. There's flat and log settings, and finally some manual color balance controls. There's two places to find audio controls. Tap the microphone button above the audio levels. A box pops up at the bottom containing some audio controls. A toggle switch allows you to choose whether to use automatic gain correction for the audio. If you switch this on, audio leveling effects will be applied, and that's things like compression, for example. So if you want your audio to be more pure and you're going to add compression later maybe, then leave this switched off. Below that is a slider to control your overall audio level. Then below that is a control with which you can choose which of your inbuilt mics to record with. So that covers your basic audio controls. But if you tap the cog button and then tap audio, you open up a menu which contains the same controls we just saw and a few extra ones as well. So you can change the quality of the audio, enable Bluetooth mics and so on. If you tap the audio levels, they will change appearance. You can either have a simple display or you can have it with the decibel numbers and peak level indicator. In the new version, this white line on the audio meter is still a slider which you can slide up and down to adjust overall audio level. Filmic Pro allows you to record with 4 different color profiles: natural, dynamic, flat and log. To choose, just tap the last item on the top menu bar, and here it says natural. The box pops up from the bottom and we have 4 choices. Natural is the same profile you get from the native app of your device. Dynamic adds more contrast, while flat reduces contrast. And finally, we have log version 2, which is Filmic's 8-bit log profile. And if you select log, you're going to see that the image now becomes washed out and it contains less contrast than the natural profile. Did you know that it was actually Kodak who invented the log format in the early 1990s? They came up with the idea of using a log, which is short for logarithmic profile, to help them better scan film when converting it to a digital image. And this process is now supported by many types of digital camera. A log profile offers a wide dynamic and tonal range, which should allow more flexibility when applying color and style choices later. If your device allows, you can switch to 10-bit color, and this then allows you to choose Filmic's log version 3. Tap the next item on the top bar menu left of the color profile. In this case it says HEVC 8. Where it says 8-bit, tap and change to 10-bit. And now when you open up the color profiles again, you will see you have log version 3 instead of log version 2. Using 10-bit color means your video clip will retain much more color information than regular 8-bit. So this is useful when you come to color grade your log footage. On the downside, 10-bit files will be bigger than 8-bit files. Filmic Pro actually provides a free LUT which you can download from their website, and that converts their log footage to standard Rec 709 footage. And if you use LumaFusion, it actually comes with these LUTs pre-installed and ready to use. Once you are in 10-bit color, you will notice you now get different color profiles. You can see here there's now linear and HLG instead of dynamic and flat, and HLG stands for hybrid log gamma. If you have a recent iPhone, Filmic Pro allows you to record in the ProRes codec. And ProRes is a professional level video format which retains more image information than the more compressed codecs which our phones normally use. On the downside, ProRes files can be up to 30 times bigger than the HEVC files iPhones normally use for video. And this means moving and storing ProRes files can be more of a challenge. Tap where it says 8-bit and now you can choose ProRes 709 or ProRes 2020. The latter choice is to be used if your final output is intended to be in HDR format. Depending on your device, you will be limited in resolution and the use of log formats. For example, using my iPhone 14 Pro with 256 gigabytes of memory, I can shoot ProRes 709 using log version 3, but using ProRes 2020, I cannot also choose a log setting. And with devices which only have 128 gigabytes of memory, I believe that ProRes is limited to 1080p resolution. Now, if you want to record video in Dolby Vision, then you can also choose that here. And Dolby Vision is an HDR format, which requires compatibility with whatever you're using to play back. So for example, if your laptop screen can't play HDR, then at best you won't be able to see the benefit. But at worst, it will look overexposed and kind of washed out. And also, if you want to edit your Dolby Vision footage, you're going to need to set the correct color space in your editing software. And again, if you don't do that, it's going to look washed out. So Live Analytics gives you a set of overlays which can help you set exposure and focus correctly. Tap the button in the bottom right corner, which is made up of a series of angled lines. The box pops up from the bottom, and now you have these 4 choices. And when you have it set to reactive, nothing actually happens until you adjust exposure or focus. Adjusting focus adds a focus peaking overlay. Adjusting exposure adds blue zebras, which indicate the darker areas of the image. If you choose zebras, you will get blue zebras for the dark areas and red zebras for the blown out or white areas. And Force Color gives you a range of colors which represent exposure values across the frame. Finally, focus peaking, as I just showed you before, gives you a green outline overlay where the green represents the parts of the image which are in focus. Filmic Pro provides remote monitoring and control via a second app called Filmic Remote. Tap the button bottom left, which looks like a Wi-Fi signal. Choose control and now open Filmic Remote with another device. There are various ways to connect, but the easiest I find is if both devices are on the same Wi-Fi service. As it stands, Filmic Remote still uses the old Filmic Pro interface, but it does connect and it works. Now it's worth bearing in mind that if you want to use Filmic Remote and Filmic Pro together, they both have to be on the same operating system. So you can't, for example, use an Android phone to control an iPhone or the other way around. The sliders used for focus and zoom have these colored markers, and you use those to set start and end points if you want to automate a movement from one point to the other. So this is how to set up an automated focus pull. Move the focus so that the first object is in focus. Press and hold on the slider until the colored marker moves. Move focus to the second object. Press and hold on the slider until the other colored marker moves into place. Now start recording and just tap the slider at the end that you want it to move towards, or the end of the little colored marker. The slider now moves slowly and smoothly from one point to the next point, and then you just stop recording when you're ready to. The zoom slider works in exactly the same way. Now in the previous version, we were able to adjust the speed of the focus pull or zoom. Version 7 doesn't yet have this, but Filmic say that this is something they're working on, and a new improved version is going to return in later updates. Now here's a little tip which might save you some issues. With the zoom slider and the audio slider now in this area, when you swipe from the right, you might find that you accidentally hit them, which is annoying of course, but it could be worse than annoying if you didn't notice you did it. and only later you find out that you have no audio on your clips, or it's lower than you wanted it to be, or you've cropped in 20% and you've lost image quality. So the first thing that you can do is remove the zoom slider. So you just go into settings, tap the cog, and then device, and then just switch here where it says hide zoom rocker. Another thing you can do is that instead of swiping to bring out the focus slider, you can just long press on the focus reticle. And you can also do that on the exposure reticle as well. Well, hopefully Filmic will allow us to also hide the volume slider as well, because I do think it is quite easy to hit or swipe it by accident. Now, if you want to learn more about making more professional looking videos with your smartphone or with Filmic Pro, you want to learn all the things like shutter speed, ISO, how to deal with dynamic tone mapping, there's my ebook, which is called Exploring the Film Look, and you can download that. As I mentioned before, I've shot 5 short films with Filmic Pro, and this year I shot a 36-minute documentary, Making of a Smartphone Filmmaker, also with Filmic Pro. So you can watch all those videos and get all the behind scenes information, and you can chat to me as well if you join us on Patreon. Otherwise, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Now we're filmmaking. This is filmmaking.
We need to put a headphone jack in, Dave.
This is where the cat hits the fan.